It was the start of fall semester at Harvard, and the campus buzzed with energy. Leaves were already turning orange and gold. Students were moving boxes into dorm rooms. And everywhere you looked, there were groups of friends laughing, catching up, or nervously meeting their new roommates for the first time. The kind of energy you only get at the start of something new. Fresh notebooks, crisp air, and late-night plans already being made. And then there was Jason. He wasn't like the others. Not in a bad way. He was just quiet. A transfer student. Nobody really knew from where. He was tall, with kind eyes and a slightly awkward smile. The kind of guy who always looked like he was about to say something, but then changed his mind. He kept his hands in his hoodie pockets and nodded a lot more than he spoke. The housing office placed him in dorm room 207. The resident assistant, Melissa, had paused a little when she looked at the assignment on the form. Her eyes flicked up to meet Jason's, and she forced a small smile. "Room 207, she said, handing him the key. "You'll have it to yourself this semester." Jason raised an eyebrow. "No roommate?" "Nope, just you. Lucky, right?" she added, too quickly. He didn't think much of it. Maybe someone dropped out. Maybe the room was just too small. Honestly, he didn't care. Having his own space sounded kind of perfect. He rolled his suitcase down the hallway and stopped in front of the door. 207. Brass numbers on a heavy wooden door. He slid the key into the lock, turned it, and the door creaked open slowly. The first thing he noticed was how cold the air inside was, like a fridge or a walk-in freezer. Still, the room wasn't bad. Old furniture, sure, but Harvard old. Not dirty, just ancient. There was a large desk, a twin bed, one window with thick curtains, and an old wooden closet built into the wall. The walls were painted beige, but a little yellowed with age. One corner had some faint water damage, nothing Jason hadn't seen before in older buildings. He dropped his backpack on the bed, sighed, and started unpacking. That first night was quiet, almost too quiet. No parties echoing from other rooms. No footsteps in the hallway. Just silence. The kind that presses in on you after midnight. Jason lay in bed, scrolling on his phone, the glow lighting up his face. Around 1:30 a.m., he finally set his phone down, rolled onto his side, and closed his eyes. That's when he heard it. A soft, scratching sound, very faint. At first, he thought it was coming from outside the window. Maybe tree branches or a squirrel or something. But when he sat up and listened, he realized the sound was coming from inside the room, from behind the wall. He sat still for a minute. The scratching stopped. Jason laughed a little to himself. "Great. Mice," he whispered, laying back down. But as soon as he closed his eyes again, the sound returned. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Pause, then again. Scratch. It continued for almost 20 minutes before finally going silent. The next morning, Jason chalked it up to nerves. New place, new school, probably overthinking. Maybe the building just creaked, or he was dreaming. But the weirdness didn't stop. Every night, the scratching returned, always between 1 and 2 a.m. And it wasn't just that. He started noticing other things. Whispers in the hallway, soft, like someone talking right outside his door. But when he opened it, no one was there. The halls were empty, lights dim, dead silent. His phone, fully charged at bedtime, would always be down to 3% or completely dead by morning. Alarms didn't go off. His apps glitched. Sometimes the screen would turn on in the middle of the night, showing only static for a few seconds before turning off again. After 3 days of this, Jason started joking about it. "Maybe my room's haunted," he said with a laugh, sitting at lunch with a few new classmates. Nobody laughed back. One guy, Marcus, looked up from his sandwich slowly. "You're in 207? "Yeah," Jason said, confused. Marcus didn't say anything for a second. Then he shrugged. "That room's been empty for a couple years. Nobody ever stays long." Jason raised an eyebrow. "Why not?" Another girl, Kendra, leaned in. "Someone disappeared there. Few years back. Guy just vanished. Like middle of the semester. His stuff was still in the room. Laptop open. Even his wallet on the desk. But he was gone." Jason tried to brush it off, forcing a smile. "Come on. That's just a story, right?" Marcus looked him dead in the eyes. "No one makes it through the semester in that room." Jason laughed again, but this time it sounded hollow, even to him. That night, he left a voice recorder running on his desk while he slept, just to prove to himself nothing was actually happening. The next morning, he played it back. For the first few hours, just silence, the occasional sound of him turning in his sleep. But around 1:40 a.m., the scratching started, louder this time. Then a faint whisper. He rewound, listened again, this time with headphones. Jason dropped the recorder. He stared at it like it was going to move. His stomach twisted. He didn't tell anyone about the recording. He didn't even delete it. He just left it on the desk and walked out to class like nothing happened. But that day, he felt watched. Not by people, by the room. As if the walls remembered things. As if the silence between the scratches held memories that weren't his. As if, deep down, the room was waiting for something. Or someone. And Jason? He was already too far in to leave. Jason was trying to stay calm. Really, he was. He told himself that this was all just stress, new school pressure, and maybe some bad dreams bleeding into real life. That had to be it. But deep down, he knew something was off. Not just old building off, but wrong in a way that made his skin crawl a little more each night. The sounds were getting worse. Every night, somewhere between 1 and 2 in the morning, he'd hear it. Slow footsteps, like boots, the kind that hit the floor with weight, with purpose. At first, he thought it was just someone living upstairs. A night owl, maybe a janitor. But on his floor, there was no room above him. Dorm room 207 was on the top floor. The attic space above was supposed to be sealed shut. full of old maintenance supplies and pipes. Jason hadn't been up there, but he'd heard the rumors. Still, the footsteps never stopped. They started with slow pacing, back and forth, back and forth. Then silence, then again. Some nights, they lasted for an hour. Other nights, just a few minutes. But always the same timing, like a pattern. Like whoever was up there knew when Jason was awake. One night, Jason got fed up. He went down the hall to the RA's room and knocked. Melissa answered, "Sleep." "I think someone's been in the room above mine," he said. "I keep hearing footsteps, like heavy ones, almost every night." She blinked, confused. "Above you?" "Yeah, like someone pacing in room 307. There was a pause. Her face changed just a little, like something clicked, but she didn't want to say it out loud. "Jason," she started slowly, "there is no room 307. He blinked back. "What?" "This building ends at the 3rd floor, she said. "Your floor. There's no room above yours. There's no 307. Jason just stood there, heart starting to race. He wanted to argue, but she was serious. He could tell. And worse, he could see in her face that she'd heard this kind of thing before. "Try to get some rest," she added, but her voice had changed. She closed the door gently, without another word. That night, Jason lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. His lamp was on. His laptop glowed from across the room. He wasn't going to fall asleep. Not until the sounds started again. At 1:12 a.m., the first footstep came. Slow, heavy, directly above him. Jason didn't move. He just watched the ceiling. A second footstep, then a third, and then all the lights in his room flickered. It started small. His desk lamp blinked once. Then his phone screen lit up and went dark again. The little red charging light on his wall adapter started flashing in a rhythm. Not randomly, but steady. Fast, fast, pause. Fast, fast, fast. Jason sat up, heart pounding. He looked around the room. His ceiling light blinked 3 times, then everything turned off at once. Darkness swallowed him. Pitch black. He stood up slowly, grabbing his phone, but the screen wouldn't turn on. It was dead. Then the flickering started again, this time brighter, like someone was flipping a giant switch somewhere behind the walls. All the lights in the room turned on again, then dimmed, then pulsed. Jason backed away toward his desk, and that's when he saw it. The mirror above his dresser. Something was there, scratched into the glass, deep, uneven lines. He stepped closer, squinting in the flickering light. "Get out." 3 words, carved with something sharp. They hadn't been there before. He was sure of it. Jason reached out and touched the letters. They were real. He could feel the grooves with his fingertip. The mirror was cold, freezing. He staggered back and looked around the room like someone else might be there with him. But it was empty. He didn't sleep that night. He sat in the hallway until sunrise, wrapped in a hoodie, trying to convince himself he hadn't imagined it. that maybe someone pranked him, that maybe he was just losing it. But the scratches didn't go away. They stayed deep and permanent. The next morning, Jason asked maintenance if anyone had access to his room the day before. They checked the logs. No one did. The keycard system showed no entry between 5 p.m. and 7 a.m. Not even his own. He didn't bring it up again. He tried cleaning the mirror. Nothing worked. Not soap. Not a rag. Not even scratching over it himself. It was like the words had burned into the glass. Later that week, he walked by another student in the hallway. Some guy he didn't know well, maybe a junior. The guy glanced at Jason and then stopped him. "You're the one in 207, right?" he asked. Jason nodded slowly. The guy didn't smile. He just looked sad. Or maybe sorry. "Don't let the lights go out," he said quietly, then walked away. Jason stared after him, frozen. "What the hell is going on?" he muttered. He went back to his room and taped a flashlight to the wall, pointed at the mirror. He left his desk lamp on, plugged in 2 phones, and even turned on his laptop screen. The room glowed with artificial light. That night, he sat awake in his bed, headphones on, playlist running on repeat just to calm his nerves. But at 1:37 a.m., the lights started flickering again. This time, slower, more deliberate. One by one, each device powered off. His phone, his backup charger, his laptop screen, gone. And then the bulb in the ceiling let out a tiny pop and went dark. Total silence, total darkness. And then, from behind the closet door, he heard a sound. A soft, dragging noise, like nails across wood. Jason didn't move. He just stared at the door, waiting. Jason had reached his limit. After nearly 3 weeks of flickering lights, cold spots, whispered voices, and that scratching sound that never really stopped, he couldn't take it anymore. He was exhausted. Not just tired, but soul-deep drained. Every night was a fight just to close his eyes. He'd lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening for the next weird noise. The room wasn't just creepy anymore. It felt alive, like something inside it was waiting for him to fall asleep. So he tried to get out. He went to the housing office, explaining as calmly as he could that he needed a room change. He said he wasn't sleeping, that something was wrong with his room, that he was hearing things, seeing things. The girl behind the counter gave him the polite but exhausted look of someone who'd heard this kind of thing too many times. "We're at full capacity," she said, typing something into her computer. "There's a wait list for room switches, but nothing's guaranteed." He asked if they could move him off campus. She shook her head. "I'm sorry. Just hang in there for now, okay?" Jason left without saying anything. He didn't want to hang in there. He wanted out. That's when he called Ethan. Ethan was one of the first people Jason met during orientation. Chill guy, funny in a dry way, always had a Red Sox cap on backwards. They'd grabbed lunch a couple times and bonded over video games and hating statistics class. Jason figured if anyone would help him out, it would be Ethan. "You want me to what?" Ethan asked, laughing through the phone. "Just stay the night," Jason said. "One night,
I'll buy pizza. Seriously, man, I don't want to sleep alone. There was a pause. Dude, that's creepy. You sound like my ex. I'm not joking, Ethan, Jason said, a little too sharply. There's something weird in this room. I just need to not be alone for a night. Ethan was quiet for a second. Then he sighed. All right, but I swear if this is some dumb prank or ghost hunting thing, I'm leaving. Jason smiled for the first time in days. No prank. Just bring a hoodie. It's freezing in here. That night, around 8:30, Ethan showed up with a blanket, a bag of snacks, and a PlayStation controller. All right, haunted boy, he said, dropping his stuff on the floor. Let's see what your creepy-ass room has in store. They ordered pizza, set up Mario Kart, and for a little while, things felt normal. The room was still cold enough for Jason to wear 2 pairs of socks. But having someone else there made everything feel less wrong. Jason didn't bring up the mirror, or the scratching, or the voice. He didn't want to ruin the vibe. But Ethan noticed it anyway. Why does your closet have tape on it? He asked. Jason shrugged. It won't stay shut. You try a chair? Tried everything. Ethan stared at the closet for a few seconds, then went back to his game. Weird. Around 1:30 a.m., the pizza was long gone, and the screen said, "Game over" for the 4th time. Ethan yawned and stood up, stretching. All right, man, nature calls, he said. Where's the bathroom? End of the hall, Jason said. Left side. Ethan grabbed his phone and stepped out. Jason sat there, alone again. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Jason figured maybe Ethan was scrolling TikTok while peeing, which was typical. But at the 15-minute mark, Jason got up and checked the hallway. Empty. He walked to the bathroom and knocked. Ethan? No answer. He opened the door. No one inside. Jason frowned. Yo, Ethan, where'd you go? He walked back down the hall, checked the stairwell, the lounge, even peeked into the vending machine area. Nothing. Jason pulled out his phone and called him. It rang once, twice, then went straight to voicemail. He tried texting. Bro, where are you? No response. He even knocked on a few other dorm rooms, feeling stupid. Sorry, hey, have you seen my friend? Tall guy, socks cap, kinda sarcastic. People shook their heads, grumbled, or shut their doors. Eventually, Jason went back to room 207, hoping maybe Ethan had come back and they'd just missed each other. The room was empty, but something was different. Ethan's phone was sitting on Jason's desk. Still unlocked. Jason picked it up slowly. The screen was open to a video. A few seconds of static played, flickering gray and white like an old TV. Then the sound kicked in, heavy breathing. Not fast, not panicked, just slow, steady breathing, like someone was hiding. Jason sat down, staring at the screen. The video didn't show anything but a dark, shaky image, like the camera was pressed against fabric or a pocket. Then, something moved across the frame. Just a blur, a shadow. Then a noise, soft but unmistakable, a whisper. Don't bring anyone else. The video cut to black. Jason dropped the phone like it had burned him. He backed away, bumping into the wall, his heart thudding so loud He swore he could hear it echo. He didn't know what to do. He wanted to call campus security, call someone, anyone, but what would he say? My friend vanished, and his phone's haunted. He sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the closet. The tape had peeled off. The door was cracked open. Jason didn't sleep that night. He sat in the corner of the room, knees pulled to his chest, eyes locked on the closet, waiting for something to move, but it never did. And Ethan never came back. The next morning, campus security did a search. No trace, no signs of struggle. They took Jason's statement, took the phone, said they'd follow up. They never did. A missing poster went up a week later. People whispered in the cafeteria, but no one looked Jason in the eye anymore. And from that night on, no one ever stayed the night in room 207 again. Not even Jason. He just didn't sleep. He watched and waited. Jason couldn't stop staring at the closet. It had been nearly a week since Ethan disappeared. No word, no call, no sighting, just gone. And Jason knew, deep down, he hadn't imagined it. His friend had been there, sitting right there on that mattress, laughing, talking, eating pizza. And then, like flipping a light switch, he just vanished. And his phone? That damn video with static and that whisper kept replaying in his head every time Jason closed his eyes. He hadn't slept, not properly. He tried staying in the common room a few nights, even crashed on the floor of a classmate's room once. But no matter where he went, he felt like something from room 207 was following him, watching him. The energy clung to him like smoke after a fire. That morning, Jason sat cross-legged on the wooden floor of his dorm, staring at the closet door. The tape he'd used to keep it shut was hanging loose, curling at the corners like it had been peeled off from the inside. The door itself now sat slightly ajar, just enough to see pitch black between the cracks. It hadn't opened fully yet, but it was only a matter of time. Jason exhaled and stood. Enough was enough. If he didn't look, he'd lose his mind. Maybe it was just some psychological thing. Maybe Ethan hid something in there. It felt colder than the rest of the room. Not cold like air conditioning, but like the door itself was made of metal that had been frozen solid. Jason shivered, blinked, and jammed the screwdriver into the tiny space between the door and frame. It took effort. The door groaned, resisted, like it didn't want to be opened. But Jason pushed harder, twisting the screwdriver until he heard the wood crack, and finally, click. The latch gave way. The door creaked open with a sound that felt far too loud for such a small space. The air that escaped smelled like dust, mold, and something else. Something metallic, sharp, almost like old pennies or dried blood. Jason stepped back, but only for a second. Then he leaned forward and turned on his phone flashlight, aiming it into the closet. It wasn't what he expected. There wasn't a mess. There weren't clothes or junk or forgotten textbooks. Just dust,
thick cobwebs lining the corners. And in the middle, facing the back wall, was a single wooden chair. Old, unpainted, with deep scratches all along the legs. Jason's light shook in his hand. He crouched slightly, aiming the beam toward the wall the chair faced. His breath caught. The words had been carved into the wall. Not once, but hundreds of times. I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm still here. Over and over and over in shaky, messy lines. Some deeper than others. Some barely legible, like whoever carved them ran out of strength. But they were everywhere, layered over one another, bleeding into the paint, into the wood. A cry for help that had never reached anyone. Jason swallowed and looked down. That's when he saw the fingernail marks. They were at the base of the closet floor, near the back wall. Deep grooves, 4 of them side by side, dragging down the wood like someone had tried to claw their way out. He leaned in, shining his light closer. A few broken bits were still stuck in the wood. Fingernails, real ones, yellowed and cracked. Jason stumbled back so fast, he hit the desk behind him. His flashlight fell and rolled on the floor, spinning the beam wildly across the walls. The room suddenly felt smaller, heavier, like the air was being sucked out. He slammed the closet door shut and leaned against it, heart pounding. But it wouldn't stay closed. Every time he took a step back, the door creaked open just a little. Not wide. It didn't matter. The next morning, the door was open again. Tape on the floor. Chair pushed slightly to the side. Textbooks untouched. But the door had opened on its own. Jason stood frozen in the middle of the room, staring at the closet. He didn't go to class, didn't speak to anyone that day. His phone rang 3 times from unknown numbers, but he didn't answer. That night, he tried to sleep with earbuds in, hoping music would drown out the fear. It didn't. At exactly 1:03 a.m., the closet door creaked again. Jason sat up, yanked the earbuds out, and stared. The door had swung halfway open. He didn't move, but something did. From inside the closet came a low sound. Not quite a growl, not quite breathing. Something in between. Like someone exhaling deeply, over and over with no lungs. The air in the room got cold again. Jason could see his breath in the dark. The sound stopped. Silence. Jason didn't scream. He couldn't. His throat closed up, and his whole body froze. He sat there, staring at that open door, eyes wide, heart beating like a war drum. And then, a voice, a whisper, low, right at the edge of hearing. "Come in. I've been waiting." Jason dove off the bed, grabbed his jacket, and bolted out of the room without even putting on shoes. He didn't stop running until he hit the lawn outside. He sat on the cold grass for what felt like hours, shaking, unsure if he was awake or still dreaming. By sunrise, he returned to room 207. The closet door was shut again, but now
Carved into the outside, fresh and clean, were 4 words. Now you know too. Jason wasn't Jason anymore. Not the guy who came in mid-semester, eager to meet new friends, polite, maybe a little quiet, but still normal. That version of him had disappeared somewhere between Ethan's vanishing and the first night he heard the voice coming from the closet. Whatever was left now just sat there. His friends noticed first. At first, they chalked it up to stress. New school, academic pressure, trauma from Ethan disappearing. Understandable. But this was different. Jason had stopped going to class altogether. He didn't respond to texts, didn't return calls. Whenever someone knocked on his door, they could hear movement inside, but he never answered. Some students said they saw him wandering the halls late at night, muttering to himself under his breath. Others said he just sat at his desk, lights off, whispering toward the closet, like he was talking to someone. One of his classmates, Julia, tried to drop off notes from a missed lecture. She knocked 3 times. No answer. But as she turned to leave, she swore she heard Jason's voice from behind the door. Very low. "I know you're watching me. I'm not afraid anymore." She backed away without saying a word. By the end of the week, Jason was a ghost in his own room. He barely ate. Trash and takeout containers were piling up. His bed remained untouched. He kept every light in the room off, taped over the windows, unplugged the overhead lamp, covered mirrors with towels. One student said he saw Jason ripping wires out of his phone charger, like he was afraid it could hear him. Some nights, people heard him pacing, other nights, crying. But the night it all ended, people heard him scream. It started as a loud, sudden bang, then shouting, then a scream so sharp, so guttural, that students down the hallway came rushing to room 207. By the time campus security arrived and unlocked the door, the floor was full of panicked voices. The door creaked open. Everyone held their breath. Jason was gone. Completely gone. No body. No signs of a struggle. The mattress was untouched. No blood. No damage. No forced exit. It was as if he'd simply vanished into thin air. But his laptop was still on. Open. Recording. The webcam's little green light blinked at them. Like an eye. Security called the dean. IT services came in to check the machine. They pulled up the last file. One continuous video, labeled automatically by the system. REC 207 final. It was just under 3 minutes long. The door creaked open slowly, almost silently. Not like before, when it would snap or rattle or bang. This time it was gentle, deliberate, like it wanted to be seen. Jason kept talking under his breath. "Please, I didn't open it. I didn't let you out. You did this. You wanted this." From behind him, a shape began to appear. Not all at once, just shadows at first. A distortion in the air, like heat ripples, bending the light. Then, feet, bare, pale. Then, legs, thin, human-like, but just slightly wrong. The way they moved, like joints bent in the wrong direction. Jason didn't turn around. He didn't scream. He just kept crying. "It knows my name now," he whispered. "It says it over and over. In my dreams, in the walls." The shape stepped forward. Hands reached out. Long fingers, bony, too many knuckles. They hovered just above Jason's shoulders, waiting, almost patient. Jason closed his eyes and smiled. "I get it now," he whispered. "It doesn't want me gone. It wants me here." The hands came down, touched his shoulders, and in the blink of an eye, he was gone. Not pulled away, not dragged, just erased. Like someone cut the footage. One frame he was there, the next, empty chair. Still spinning slightly from the weight that had just been lifted. And the closet, still wide open. The video ended. Authorities searched every inch of the building. They brought in experts, even considered a full demolition plan to investigate the sealed attic. But there was nothing to find. The closet, once so hard to open, now swung freely. And behind it, no carvings, no chair, no fingernail marks. Just an empty wooden space, clean, like it had just been built. No trace of Jason was ever found. The dean made a statement 2 days later. "We ask that everyone respect the privacy of the student's family and refrain from speculation." The school quietly locked room 207 for maintenance, but students knew. They whispered about it in hushed voices in the dining halls. They stopped walking past that hallway altogether. Someone spray painted over the door, "Don't open it. Ever." Others say the laptop still sits in evidence somewhere, but the original file, REC 207 final, is missing. Not deleted, not corrupted, just gone. Some say it still pops up now and then. On the dark web, on message boards, in email attachments people regret clicking. But when they watch it, they don't sleep again. Because if you see the recording, it starts whispering your name too. The school never issued a formal explanation. No press release, no follow-up statement, no open discussion. Jason's name quietly disappeared from class rosters, email directories, and dorm records, as if he had never been there at all. The official line was vague. Jason Carter has voluntarily transferred to another university, but nobody believed it. Because Jason didn't pack up his things. His textbooks remained stacked on his desk. His hoodie still hung over the back of his chair. His shoes, slightly worn and one lace broken, were left under the bed, facing the wrong direction, like he'd stepped out of them in a hurry. People who knew him, roommates, classmates, even his professors, said the same thing. He just vanished, but the room didn't. Room 207 remained, still locked, still sealed, with a key that campus housing claimed no longer worked. For the rest of the semester, the building staff told new students it was under renovation. They even put up a laminated "Construction Zone, Do Not Enter" sign, taped crookedly to the door. But everyone knew that was just for show. Because even when no one was supposed to be inside, the lights flickered at night. It started subtly. A passing student would glance over and swear they saw a dim orange glow behind the window curtain. Another would walk by after midnight and pause at the soft hum of electricity, like something was plugged in and charging behind that door. And then came the noises. Soft at first, scratching, not loud, not frantic, just slow, repetitive, like fingernails against drywall, methodical and patient. It started around 1 a.m. most nights. One night, a sophomore named Lindsay was coming back from the library. Her dorm room was 3 doors down from 207, and as she passed by, she heard what she described as a cough, like someone trying not to be noticed. She froze, stepped back, put her ear to the door. Nothing. Just silence. But as she turned to leave, she swore she heard it. A voice. Very low. Male. I never left. She didn't sleep that night. The stories kept coming. Different people. Same hallway. Same door. One guy dared his friends to knock on 207 3 times. Recorded on TikTok. He did. He knocked once, twice, 3 times, laughing. Then a knock came back. From inside, the guy dropped his phone and ran. When he picked it up later, the recording was corrupted, just static and breathing. Harvard tried to explain it away. Old wiring, building acoustics, creaky floors. But deep down, even the staff knew something wasn't right. A janitor named Carlos, who'd worked there for over 20 years, refused to clean the 3rd floor after dark. He told a new hire that room, something's wrong with it. Ever since the 80s, we don't talk about it. We don't touch it. When the new guy asked what happened in the 80s, Carlos just shook his head and walked away. Rumors started to spread that Jason wasn't the first to vanish from 207, that decades earlier, another student had gone missing in the same room under similarly strange circumstances. The files were gone, the history scrubbed, but some older alumni, when asked during reunions, would grow quiet and say things like, "Oh, that room, they haven't fixed it yet." People started saying 207 was cursed, that it didn't just take people, it remembered them. Some swore that if you stood outside the door at exactly the right time of night, you could still hear Jason crying from the other side. Others claimed they saw someone's shadow moving past the window, even though no one had lived there in years. But the most chilling thing, every fall semester, without fail, the system accidentally assigned someone to room 207. It always happens just once. A glitch, they say. A clerical error. But somehow, someone always gets a key, walks down that hallway, stands in front of that door, and then their name quietly vanishes from the housing registry within 24 hours. No explanation, no follow-up. Just gone. Some say it's Jason, still trapped inside. Others think it's something older, something that was there long before him. A thing that feeds on attention,
on fear, on presence. Something that doesn't just haunt the room, it is the room. And every time someone tries to forget, every time the door gets locked, every time they try to pretend like nothing ever happened, it remembers. Some believe that the only reason the building still stands is because nobody's ever stayed in 207 for more than a night since Jason. Like the room's been left hungry, waiting. But you know what's strange? Sometimes, late at night, you'll find the door slightly ajar. Just a crack. Not open, but not closed either. As if it's inviting someone in. And if you're the kind of person who can't resist a good mystery, if you think you're smarter than everyone else, if you're the one who says ghost stories aren't real and nothing ever happens to me, you might be the next one the room notices. And once it notices you, once it learns your name, it never forgets. Because room 207, it's always technically unoccupied, but somehow it's never truly vacant.